Sample questions. Ideally, the business owner will be able to answer the following questions regarding their website, although you may have to explain some terms to owners that represent the true bargains in online businesses, since many of them really are running the site more as a hobby than as a business. Questions that you need details about, whether from them or from available tools, include the type of revenue model used on the site, historical and current revenue, existing liabilities and debts and commitments, assets, keywords in use and how many are unique, number of competing websites or vendors, Alexa ranking of the site, value of the domain name or brand, current and potential search engine traffic, convertibility of the site and tools used to maintain or create it, and costs to recreate the site. Top criteria to use. There are no hard and fast rules when it comes to evaluation of the website for a business, but the two primary criteria should always be 1. Profits. A common valuation is to multiply by 10 times the net profit, so a website that brings in $20,000 a year could conceivably be worth $200,000. 2. Cost of replicating. Just as with other businesses, why buy a pig in a poke if you can buy another the same size with no problems? Once a clear understanding of all assets and debts is done, if you can create the site, get it listed and a similar domain name registered, etc., for substantially less than purchasing the existing site, the value from profits should be reduced by this much since no unique value exists. In addition to this, of course, there are some costs that are difficult to stratify, such as target acceptance and brand recognition, domain name, availability of a non-compete clause, and site potential. For our purposes, the place we live and die is the last one, the potential. The idea is to find sites that are undervalued due to one or more oversights on the owner's part that can be quickly turned around. Tools for website appraisal. We've mentioned several tools in passing already, and many of the bargains out there will be run by site managers who don't fully understand the importance of tracking their logs and financials, so they probably will not be aware of those tools. Many site creation and management tools, such as Microsoft's Front Page, can create log files and financial reports, but other tools which may be needed to obtain useful information include Alexa, Overture Bid Tool, Aaron's KW Tool, Domain Appraisal Tool, which is free, and ClickBank Valuation Spreadsheet, which is fee-based. Link valuation. Having links to your page is generally a good thing, but to add value, they need to be on older, high-traffic sites with a similar interest to the product or products you're focusing on. Questions you need to ask and consider when evaluating a site and seeing what links to that site exist include: how closely does the site linking to you associate with your niche? Are there many or only a few links from that site? What does the link look like? For example, does it have a logo, just text, a description, etc.? And does it encourage viewers to follow it? Is it an older, well-established site? Does the link go directly to a subsite or to your home page? Getting an idea of what links exist and where they point, as well as the value and traffic of the originating site, will let you know if there is added value there. Identifying revenue model. One important aspect of evaluating any business is to understand the finances, assets, and debts of the business. In the case of a website, to fully understand the value of the site requires an understanding of what revenue model was being used for that site, since that will play a key role in deciding if the site has value as a web-based business or just a domain name. The types of revenue models a site can have include one or a mix of the following: no model, informational only; product-based, donation, subscription, advertising, and service. Identifying the revenue model, links, and search engine ratings and customer base provide you most of the value of a website. All that's left now is to understand any debts and expenses of the site. Evaluating debt. Any value an online business has needs to be offset by its outstanding debts and an understanding of which, if any of those debts, is assumed by a new owner. Some agreements are binding to the business itself, with a term stipulated in a contract. Be sure to get and review any such contracts during your evaluation phase to see what the terms, time limits, and costs are. Some typical expenses that you may wish to query about include website hosting, merchant and credit card acceptance fees, advertising expenses, online, printed, mailers, etc., any pay-per-click listing or link fees, administration fees. Determine what is included. Obviously, as you do all this research, you need to be preparing notes on each aspect of the business, the website and products, and leave a yes and no checkbox on each as to whether or not they are to be included with the purchase on any offer you make. Items that you will need to obtain any value include, but may not be limited to, domain name registration transfer, non-compete agreement, details of the status and agreements for any leases, contracts, web hosting, administration services, web linking agreements, AdSense or other affiliate programs. Included intellectual properties such as logos and artwork on the site, trademarks and phrases. Functionality including any code or back-end programs used on the site, animations or custom forms, passwords and necessary programs, etc. to update or maintain the site. Physical goods. Source resources such as contracts with vendors and supplier information and pricing. Details of existing business plans and financials. Many resources are available both to review existing filings of contracts to purchase and sell and to create custom forms that detail specifics, and of course it's recommended that you have a lawyer well versed in the laws both in your state and the state in which the business is founded to review any contracts before signing them. But once you have a clear understanding, it's possible to use a boilerplate contract and change the specifics as needed, thus reducing these costs. How to determine marketability. The appraising of the value of the site should have provided you with examples of low points that you're using to decide that this site is a bargain and one that you can and should flip. The key is to understand the costs of correcting the problems with the business and the potential profit margin. The best approach to determining marketability is to perform a survey or study to see how well the product would fare within its target audience. The costs of this, of course, needs to be balanced against the value of being able to show the potential to potential buyers for the site after you improve and correct the underlying flaws. Steps you can use to test a market include identifying existing customer base, either from previous owner records, or obtain a list of potential buyers from a marketing firm. Create a survey asking them to rate and rank their experience with the products in question, happiness or dissatisfaction with the process, preferred price point, any preference to contact methods, amount spent on this or similar product in the past year, satisfaction with the product itself, its packaging, shipping and handling, and follow-up from vendor, areas of interest to them or hobbies, personal data, age, ethnicity, etc. Using government statistics, you can now target the number of people in similar ethnicities and with related hobbies and interests, multiply that potential number of customers by the average price they are willing to pay to project a target market range. Resources. Perhaps the most important partner you can have when dealing with business transactions is a personal lawyer with a clear understanding of e-commerce law. All too often, however, the old adage of lawyers kill deals can come true, even though the legal requirements and potential downfalls of blindly entering contracts with legal assistance is almost sure to cause you problems sooner or later. Relying too much on the expensive advice of legal authorities can defeat any hope of profits from e-business flipping. The key, as with most things in life, is to strike a balance. Ideally, you'll target specific types of businesses and purchases on which you'll focus. This will not only allow you to quickly grow your expertise in making them profitable and understanding the market potential, but will also allow you to create custom forms and contracts that can easily be changed and modified for each successive purchase and sale that you enter. In cases like this, seeing a lawyer to perfect your initial contracts and processes can occur once, with all the costs then spread out over the life of your buying and selling of sites and businesses in the years to come. There are many free and low-cost do-it-yourself sites out there as well, with sample forms, listings of contracts from public sales and filings, and these can be a valuable resource to use in drawing up your own contracts or in preparing a contract to have reviewed by your lawyer. Many of these sites, as well as some sample forms that you will surely need, are included in this chapter. Tools for appraising a website. We've spoken some about how to properly appraise a website and even provided a few links in the previous chapter. But it's worth mentioning the most useful tools and software commonly used in this chapter again, so you can keep all of your resource links in one place. Most sites will have been created with specific software that can provide log files and site statistics. These are important, and therefore the number one list of tools should be a copy of the existing software the site was generated with, and preferably the same version as well, since changes and loss of features from one version to another can cause very serious problems. Other tools and a brief description of how they can be used include Alexa Data Services, a series of tools and website services to allow you to check current sites' traffic rankings, any related links, and the top sites. Available components include Alexa's Web Information Service, AWIS. It obtains information on website traffic, links, contact info, etc. Top sites, lists of top sites in search engines by www or country. Site thumbnails, programmatical access to thumbnails of homepage sites for use in links or analysis of related or competitive sites. Web search allows embedded the Alexa web search into sites. RSS feeds, data from the tools above in RSS feed format. Business forms. There are many forms and contracts that you'll need to have available or have custom created for you. Fortunately, many samples and filed examples already exist, and with a little care you can use these to create documents that should work for you. It's still recommended that you have a lawyer look over any contracts, of course, but in certain low-volume sales where profits are tight, use of free or sample forms can make the difference. Letter of intent. Another of the most important forms that you'll be using is called the letter of intent, which specified in a non-legally binding manner what your intentions are, and will constitute an actual contract or agreement and at what time. Care must be taken to avoid terms like "will negotiate towards" and "in good faith," since those could become argument points should a disagreement occur and may tie you into forming some type of deal should they wish to pursue legal recourse. A good letter of intent may have some or all of the following attributes: total compensation being offered with breakdown of types and dates of payments if appropriate, warranties of any marketable titles, clear definitions of tax liability limitations, detailed assets and liabilities to be included and clearly stated terms that no liabilities not listed are to be assumed, state of all assets and websites at the time of purchase, and allowing for adjustments in compensation should undisclosed liabilities appear or inventory or equipment doesn't match stated amounts. Provisions and terms for handling events such as inspections that are not passed, or verification of financial statements, licensing, and lease transfers is completed within the time specified. Failure to sign or follow a non-compete or non-disclosure clause. Allocation of purchase price. Settlement and drop-dead dates. The actual goal of a letter of intent is really just to outline the major terms of a transaction, and in many cases simply defaults to a binding purchase and sale agreement that specified the same aspects. Which approach you choose is up to you. Books and links. There are many good books that can be used for business flippers and that contain good guidance on turning a business around or how a good sale should be handled. Many can be checked out of your local library or found online or at used bookstores. A partial list of some of the most useful books and online articles includes A Crash Course on the Digital Marketing Vendor Landscape, The Desire to Acquire and the Urge to Merge by Cliff Kurtzman, Hand in Hand by John McCormick, Case Study, Flipping a Site for Profit by Jeremy Wright, Case Study, Once I Bought a Website by Jeremy Wright, and .com for Sale by Robin Greenspan. I Want to Sell My Site Forum, Get High, Traffic Forums, Jim Tools. Tips for Purchasing. Once you identify a site that you believe is underperforming and has value, enter negotiations and get agreement on the terms of the consideration. The next step will be the actual review of the value of the site, making an offer, and of course, purchasing the site and business. One of the most important aspects of setting a price and purchasing it is to do a clear analysis of the target audience that the site is aimed at, the effectiveness of the site at reaching that audience, and the potential for reaching that audience in the form of search engine listings, crosslinks, etc. But to make a site a bargain, you need to identify one or more problem areas that can be corrected and thus increase its value. Identifying a price. As we've mentioned previously, one rule of thumb is to multiply times 10 the yearly profit the site has produced historically. But when it comes to spending money, you obviously want to do all you can to minimize this number. If historical trends point to a downward spiral, you can use that as a bargaining point and project a valuation that reflects the continued downward trend into the next year as an estimated income, and then multiply times that to reduce the value. Problems or common assets that are missing can also be used as points to further reduce the cost. If a site, for instance, has lots of custom animations that need to be changed due to a sale and no ongoing agreement with the web designer, you can list that potential expenditure as debits in your analysis and reduce the offer by that amount. A certain amount of knocking is to be expected by the owner, but you don't want to come across as negative. In most cases, the site owner will have a personal interest in the site and business, and will be insulted when you point out existing problems, even if they know that you're telling the truth. Ideally, you'll explain that you like what they've done, but that your past experience and market analysis shows that in this particular market, X approach typically works better, and making those changes will cost you Y amount, and therefore you need to reduce the offer by Z to ensure profitability. Forming an offer. As we discussed in earlier chapters about analyzing the site and resources to form letters of intent and formal offers, you need to be very careful with any wording not to tie yourself in and to make all offers contingent upon the inclusion of all assets you desire and a clearly detailed exemption from any existing debts or unwanted engagements. The initial offer that you come up with may very well stipulate certain information that will need to be researched or identified as well. So costs involved in obtaining that information need to be mentioned in the offer, as well as who will be responsible for those costs, both if the deal goes through and in advance. Evaluating your offer. As mentioned previously, much of the value of an existing site, whether an e-business or a community-based site to generate revenue from advertising, etc., is rather intangible, but tools exist to help gauge the valuation. Several of those tools and some discussion on how to use them in evaluating your offer follow. Alexa. This is not so much a tool as a series of tools and website services, all designed to allow you to check a site's search engine rankings, links, and the top sites for a specific focus area. Available features include the Alexa Web Information Service. Use this feature to get details on the website traffic and meat of the site, who is listed as the contact, links to the site, etc. In many cases, poorly run sites can be identified by outdated contact information or very few links, which can be both a good point for a business flipper looking for aspects of a business or a site to change, but also a bargaining point at this stage of the process. Top sites. This feature is used to list the top sites in search engines by www or country for specified focus groups, which can be useful in identifying the ranking of the site in question as compared to those it competes against. Often, a site may be considered a top site due to traffic and search engine rankings, but have little to no revenue generation based on that. This is especially true of informative sites that have been up over time, but never aimed at creating revenue as such. Site thumbnails. This is less useful in forming your bid, but an interesting feature all the same, allowing access to a thumbnail from a home page for use in links or analysis. This could be used in a bid package to show examples of competing sites that are successful, and may also be useful later on when selling the site. Web search. This feature allows you to embed Alexa web search data into sites, not useful at this time. RSS feeds. Allows the data collected from the tools above to be accessed in RSS feed format, not useful at this time. Estimate advertising costs. Most likely a bargain site such as we will be searching will have little to no advertising, but the need for incorporating this to turn the site around can be a selling point to bring up. This is especially useful for cases where existing owners with little capital are not seeing good returns and need a little ego stroking, explaining during negotiations that you like the site but see that little advertising has been done, which may explain why it's underperforming. It allows them to feel justified that any lack of growth is not their fault. If you use tools such as SEO and various bid tools available from Yahoo and MSN, you can easily identify the types of fees and costs per click that competitive sites are paying and point out that as a necessary cost of growing the business and therefore a debit, even if you don't believe it's necessary at this juncture to initiate yourself. A few of the tools we've previously mentioned can all be found on the excellent SEO resource site at tools.seobook.com include Keyword Tool. This tool pulls the Overture keyword top phrases and links to other keyword tools such as ViewBid, Google, Suggest, and AdWords Sandbox tools, NicheBot, etc. Keyword misspellings. Often sites, especially undervalued ones such as we're seeking, will not have thought to include misspelled keywords. This tool helps to identify the common errors for keywords and thus identify what you should have in your search engine keywords to draw your target audience to you. Google Suggest Scraper Tool, a great Google tool that lists common phrase searches. Link Analysis. Tools from LinkHound such as Backlink and Link Harvester allow you to gather information on sites linked to your domain and thus see if there are adequate in-place links and if they target the correct audience for the product or focus of the site. A few other useful link tools include reciprocal link scripts and link popularity tools. Obviously, the purpose behind all of this is to quantify your offer in such a way that the owner will see the value behind what you're offering them and hopefully understand that their baby will be well taken care of and not just dismantled. Many of the bargain sites you find were started not so much as a business venture, but as an act of love, and this focus on information rather than revenue generation is both what makes them tempting to you as an e-commerce flipper and a challenge to purchase, since the owners often will have irrational fears of someone ruining their site by making it too commercial. At this point, you should have an idea of how much you want to offer for the business, and about at how much it's valued. Some items you need to take into consideration before drawing up an offer include how you'll pay for it, time to close escrow, what all will be specified to be included in the buy-sell agreement, what, if any, training and software is to be included, and a time frame. Specifics such as inventory included, adjustments to same based on sales during escrow, etc. Details for arbitration and mediation in place and signed by both parties. Funding. Ideally, you'll have cash on hand to fund your offer, but to accomplish this, you may need to arrange financing or a loan. Some common sources that you may consider include self-loans from 401k or IRA accounts, normally within 30 days. Mortgage on owned property, should be done in advance. Business loan from SBA or bank, often 60 to 90 days. As with gambling, there's a saying in business that you should never risk capital you can't afford to lose. In other words, don't bet your life savings on making a profit. Of course, without risk, there is no gain either, and the difference between a steady but low 3% return and several quick 10% returns, even if you lose your capital some of the time, can still put you ahead in the long run. Bringing down the price. The discussion you have with the owner prior to settling your bid in writing is vital to whether they're likely to accept your offer and how they'll feel about it. You want to be sure they feel you are good for their site and won't completely discredit their efforts, but at the same time you need to clearly identify the problems and issues that you'll need to correct and the potential costs of doing this. Pointing out the problems. If you have a discussion and bring up issues such as advertising, linking, and profitability and how active the market they are in appears to be, you can drop hints in a friendly way as to what past experience has shown you in such a manner that you don't seem to be confrontational or making selling points, but rather being friendly. For example, when discussing a product line, if they say something like, "My customers really like this one, it's popular and really holds up." At this point, you might say something in response like, "So I guess you don't see a lot of repeat sales to the same buyers for that item then. But hopefully, since you did them right, they come back to you for other things. I know on some of my other projects I had to invest in some marketing and contact tools to encourage that sort of behavior, which was expensive, but eventually paid off. What kind of customer contact management tools are you using right now, and have you had much success with repeat sales?" This type of conversation is vital to setting the tone as well as helping to obtain the background necessary for your offer, and if you keep notes, you can use these facts in a cover sheet explaining your bid. An example of how to accomplish that might include Dear Mr. Bunton, please find enclosed my proposal for the purchase of your company, M Staff Motorcycle Accessories. Review it and let me know your thoughts as soon as possible, please. I know that this was just a part-time business for you and that you relied mainly on word of mouth for advertising and feel you've done a lot with the company up to this point, so I don't wish to slight you in any way. But my market analysis has shown that significant advertising and link rating work will need to be accomplished, as well as efforts to encourage repeat patronage, all of which will be costly to grow the business. In light of this and your excellent work on growing the business so far, I've made as fair an offer as possible, but may be willing to reconsider certain aspects of this offer should you wish to propose changes. Aspects that went into my determination of the site's value include monthly income estimates. At most, a 5x multiplier in this market would apply, and I see only an average of $400 in sales a month over the life of the site, considering the slow winter months. Costs to recreate the site content and web design. You've done an excellent job with the web design, and I estimate recreating it would cost a graphic designer and a website manager this amount. But much of the content and structure will need to be changed after the sale, so I'm not able to include the full value of the existing page in my considerations. I expect about $5,000 in costs to move and recreate the page as needed to capture the target audience, so this was a major factor in my offer. Inventory on hand. You've listed a fair return for the on-hand inventory, and I feel my offer will be acceptable to you. However, I do wish to point out that I may be able to purchase product in bulk for a much lower price point than you were able to in the past, so much of my offer for inventory is based in part on goodwill and other value of the business, and not just the product. Search engine rankings. Your search engine and reciprocal link status results are very good for a home-based business, but my analysis shows a few significant problems which may cost some time and money to correct, and therefore have impacted my offer somewhat as well. Whether you accept my offer or not, I thank you for your time and consideration so far. I look forward to a response at your earliest convenience. Since this cover letter will not be part of the official offer as such, it provides an excellent opportunity to both introduce what's coming in the offer and to remind the owner of past discussions and issues that affect your decision. You may also wish to assure the safety of the escrow service you suggest in your bid. Provide relevant contact information to them and your lawyer, etc. in this cover letter, even if you've previously done this as well, to help expedite matters and keep everything readily at hand for the owner. With luck, your bid will be accepted as is, or with reasonable changes, and after closing, you will now own a business that's ready to be turned into a profit.